Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Sandy Gabe. I am the AAUW California webmaster and also Diane's assistant for this term. And behind the scenes, we have two people from the communications team, my magicians, Tracy Clark, who is the director for communications this year, and Randa Blanding, who many of you probably know, she's the board-to-board editor. So they're working their magic behind the scenes. We will be using the Q&A function that's at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, if you hover near the bottom of the screen, a black box will show up and you'll see Q&A. And in there you can pose a question. So it says type your question here. That's where you put your question in. And there will be two topics at the top, all questions and my questions. So you can see what's been asked and answered already. We will take some periodic breaks and stop and answer questions. So Helen says she can't see how to download the presentation. It's on the website. It was also in the registration confirmation that you got today, and it's in the chat. So it should be, let me redo the chat in case you can't see it because you joined after. So there's the link in the chat. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and the session is being recorded, so we'll be able to share it on our website after the presentation. So if you miss something or if you want to share it with other folks in your branch, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so the document, I just wanted to orient you a little bit to the document here. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see some links on each page. Those are links to either the website, our website, or to Zoom. Zoom has a lot of really, really good presentations and instructions on how to use Zoom on it. So I would really encourage you to use that tool if you're having problems. And some of them have videos, and you'll see a little video symbol on that page as well. What we're going to talk about today is to do some really basic stuff on Zoom. So how to get started, how to create an account, how to schedule a session, and then to do some problem solving. So I would first like to get started by understanding a little bit about who we have in the room and what kind of experience you have. So I'm going to put up a poll, and I'm going to, let's see, here we go. So in the middle of your screen, you should see a poll that says, how many times have you personally hosted a Zoom session? And if you can just let me know, so we can get a sense, I can get a sense of how many folks have a lot of experience versus no experience at all. So I love this little tool. This is a feature of a paid account, and it's quick and easy. So I can tell you that we have 89% of the people have responded, and I'm going to end the polling, and I'm going to share the results. So half of you have never used a Zoom before. So I will spend a lot of time trying to get you started. And we've got several people, 7, who've used it quite a bit. So they'll, you may be bored. I don't know. I hope that you'll pick up something along the way. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that poll. And let's talk about getting started. So these are some basic pieces of information for just how to do an online presentation. They don't really have anything to do with Zoom. They're appropriate for whatever tool you use. Your workspace should be uncluttered. You can use a video backdrop if you have a lot of stuff in the back that you don't want people to see. I would encourage you to use a room with a door on it so that you don't have your dog or your cat come in and join you. And I have backlit windows, And that makes it very difficult for you to see me unless I put some shades over them. So I have put shades up. One of the best things you can do for yourself is to test your setup before you have a meeting and practice with somebody. So I'd encourage you to do that. You don't have to have a camera. I know some people think that the only way they can use the video is if they have a camera. But if you don't have a camera, you just have your name displayed and you don't have your picture. So if you can see my little video, you would just see my name like you see Randa and Tracy's name if you don't have a camera. It doesn't slow you down, so don't let that stop you. A microphone is also optional. You can dial into the meeting by phone if you don't have a microphone. And that is also a tip for if you have somebody who is having difficulty with their audio, you can have them dial in by phone as well. There's a quick start guide on Zoom that shares some of this information and some more. You might check that out. All right, so the first thing we want to do is create an account. So for those of you who haven't created an account, it's very, very, very easy. For those of you who have already created an account, I'd like to know what kind of account you already have. So I'm going to ask you a question. So if you can let me know whether you have a Zoom account and what type. If you don't have one, or if you have a free one, which has got the 40-minute limit, or if you're using a paid account. All right, so we've got 91% of people voted. I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you. So 28% of people don't have an account, and most people are using a free account. Okay, that's very helpful. We've got a few people who are using a paid account. So I'm going to do a couple more slides here, and then we're actually going to go onto Zoom, and I'll show you how to start an account. So the one question that comes up, well, one of the questions that comes up is, does AAUW California have a Zoom account that we can share? And we do not. We have a Zoom account that we use for the board, for our leadership team. If you can imagine 120 some branches all trying to schedule on one account, that would be very pretty difficult. The free account has a 40-minute time limit. And if you use it, the first time you use it, you probably will be able to stay on for longer than 40 minutes. After the first time, they really do cut you off at 40 minutes. There also used to be phone conferencing on the free account, but they canceled that probably a couple of months ago now. The paid account is $14.99 per month per host. And I know that I've had some questions about, well, for 15 bucks a month, everybody could use it. But it is per host, and each host can only have one meeting going on at a time. So if we had a bunch of people sharing that, that would prove to be difficult over time. In the paid plan, you have some additional benefits: breakout rooms, a personal meeting ID, polling like what I just did, and some reporting that's helpful. Probably the biggest benefit for the paid account is you don't have a 40-minute time limit. Most of our meetings tend to be an hour or an hour and a half. You can have 2 meetings back to back and have people log out and log back in. So that would be another way to get around the time limit. So can you share an account? Yes, you can. And I was actually on a Zoom developer call a couple of weeks ago, and they acknowledged that people are sharing accounts. They're really, you have one user ID that you use, and the limitation is really that you can't have more than one meeting going on at the same time. So you can create an account that you could share for your branch or your group or your family. If you don't have a group email that you're using today, you could set one up. Gmail accounts are free, Hotmail accounts are free, Yahoo accounts are free, and you might choose a name, something like AAUW your branch at Gmail as an example, and then share that login information with your members or your leadership team or whoever you want to share that with. And just remember that you can't hold 2 meetings at the same time. You don't have to create a calendar to manage that because, and I'll show you in a few minutes, those meetings all show up on your account. So if you go to schedule another one, you'll see that there's already a meeting planned and you'll know not to schedule over top of it. Okay, so I'm going to go out of this and I'm going to go over to Zoom and show you how to create an account. Okay, so I'm just going to a basic browser window and I'm going to type zoom.com. Oops, not Zoo. Zoom works better than Zoo, although that might be fun too. So right now, it probably knows that I'm logged in. So it's got my account. And so it has information about me. So I'm going to log out of this account so you can see. So you just do sign up. It's free. This big orange box here. I'm just clicking on that. This registration information is just so they can link you up and know that you're the same person. So I'm going to say my birthday is January 1st. They probably will know if I say 2020 that I'm only a year old. So I'm going to continue. And then you put in an address. And that's pretty much it. And then you sign up. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to set one up in my husband's name. He'll be very happy about that. And then there's a link that goes to that email address and then you can join in. So once you've joined, that's as easy as it is. Once you've joined in, I'm going to share my screen with you here. So, and I hope that this is big enough for you to see. I've enlarged it to some degree, but you might have to look closely. So these are your settings. So this is who I am here in the upper right-hand corner. I'm AAUW California. It's a licensed copy. That means I've paid for my version. And when I click on here, it takes me to this, oops, you know what, I signed out a few minutes ago. So it's going to make me sign back in. Oops, sorry, sign in. Here we go. All right, that one works. Okay, so this is my settings page. And under the profile, you can add a picture. And if you, you can edit this here. So you can say what your name is, your phone number if you want to put that in. If you are an organization, you might want to put a department, a job title, that sort of thing. And then you can add a picture if you like. And if you hit change here, it just asks you to put a picture in. So I could upload one. I'm going to leave it alone because I like what's there, but it's easy to put a picture on. And that picture is what you see when I turn my video off. This is what you see. Okay. And this picture that I'm using is off of the Member Services database. If you go and look up your branch and you download your logos, this one is titled Web Use Only, and it's this little moniker like this. This next option you have over here is Meetings, and this will show you all the meetings that are scheduled. So as you can see, you could have several people using this and know that we can't both sign up for July 18th at 9 o'clock. So you don't have to create another calendar. You could if you wanted to, but this is where your meetings show up. We also have a tool called Webinars, and that is an add-on. And that is, it starts at $40 a month. And we use it for these types of meetings so that everybody is in a view-only mode. And it gives us a couple of really nice tools. One of them is the Q&A. As if you've done a Zoom meeting, you know that once people start using the chat, if a lot of people are using the chat, it can be challenging to keep up with the individual questions. But on the Q&A, it puts the question and then you can answer that specific question. So those are the webinars that we use. Both of these two tabs have upcoming and previous, and they both have the ability to create a template. So I have a template set up for my webinars that ask the question, what branch are you in? So that I can do that for every meeting. You can also record, and the recordings are saved. You have a couple of options about where to save your recordings. You can save them to the cloud, or you can save them locally. There is a limit to the amount of storage that you have on the cloud. I usually download them and then we put them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And so they stay there so I can remove them from the cloud. And then the settings is something I want to go over, and you'll find this in your packet. So I'm just going to run through the different settings that are available to you. So there are meeting settings, recording settings, and telephone settings. I'm going to go over meeting and recording. I don't think most people are using this just for telephone calls. All right, so from a security standpoint, there are a couple of things to remember. That there was a little talk about Zoom bombing when Zoom first became popular when we started the COVID epidemic. And so it's now a default to require a password when scheduling a new meeting. You can turn this off, but it's not a bad idea to have a password. And you can have that for scheduled meetings or instant meetings. Instant meeting would be a meeting that you're going to start right at the minute, right this moment. And then you can also require a password for participants joining by phone, because if for some reason somebody got a hold of your meeting information and came in, they could disrupt your meeting just by talking. There is a personal meeting ID. I don't recommend using the personal meeting ID. It's convenient. It is the same meeting ID for all of your meetings. If you use that, you do have the risk that somebody finds out your personal meeting ID and then they say, oh, AAUW always use AAUWCA as their password. I could get in there if I wanted to. So I don't recommend using the personal meeting ID, although that's a personal choice. I would definitely use a password if you're using that. There is a waiting room, and a waiting room puts all of the people in a holding tank until you're ready to let them in. So this is one way to control whether people are supposed to join your meeting or not. So if you have a small group and you know who's supposed to be in your meeting, you can open the waiting room up and you can individually let them in, or you can let in the whole group at once. So this is a security feature as well. If you have the waiting room enabled, it also allows you, if you have somebody who's being disruptive and is bothering you, you can move them back to the waiting room and then they can't interact with the rest of your members on your call. Embed the password in the one click to join. This is just a nice feature so that when you get your reminder, you can just click in. You don't have to remember the password. It's embedded because it went to you individually. The only authenticated users can join meetings is not really appropriate or applicable to us unless you're going to have multiple hosts and a company set up. So I would just ignore that. Same thing with this one here. So for scheduling the meeting, you have a couple of different options. Your video is either yourself, you're the host if you scheduled the meeting or you're starting the meeting, and the participants are all of the other people in the meeting. Now I can't see any of you because I'm using the webinar, but typically you would have a panel of people that you can look at, the people who've joined. And you can, as a default, set the participants' video on or off. You can always change that when you get into the meeting, but you can have it default that way. Audio type, I'm not sure why you would only want to do telephone or only computer audio. I think leaving it at telephone and computer is appropriate. This join before the host is a little bit opposite the waiting room concept. So if you put people in a waiting room, they can't join. If you allow them to join before you are joining, let's say that you're you have a meeting, you've got 5 people there and you know you're gonna be late, but you're the host, you can turn this on so that other people can join. Or you could turn this on and not join the meeting at all. Here's the personal meeting ID window. I have it enabled, but I don't ever use it, as you can see here. The other kind of things you can do, so you've got the visual part, you can turn people's video off when they join and then turn it on, or vice versa. You can also mute participants upon entry. So sometimes when you have a large group, there's a lot of background noise, or the way the computer works is it hears a noise and then it goes to that person. And sometimes it appears that you have really bad audio when really it is because somebody's got noise going on in their room. So if you have everybody muted when they join, it's sometimes easier to get started, and then you can ask people to unmute as they want to talk, or you can unmute people individually or en masse. And then you can get a meeting reminder. There are a couple of options for chat. Since we're using the webinar version, I turned the chat off so that we can just use the Q&A piece. So you can allow meeting participants to send a message to everybody. You can turn that on if you like. Sometimes you want that to happen. Sometimes it's disruptive to your meeting, so you have a choice on that. You can change that during the meeting as well. There is a feature that allows members to the meeting to save the chat. You can stop people from doing that. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but you can. And then you can enable private chats, one-on-one messages between participants. I tend to turn that off because I want people to pay attention to what we're talking about and not be having another conversation. I do an autosave on my chats for meetings so that I don't have to remember to do that, and it sends me a file at the end of the meeting with all the chat information, which is really helpful if you have a big meeting and maybe you have some questions that you weren't able to get to. You can look at all the chat when you're done and see if you need to follow up with anybody. Sending a notification or a sound notification when somebody joins or leaves, you can certainly do that. I find it disruptive, so I have mine turned off. File transfer, I have this turned off. I don't really want people sending files through here. And feedback to Zoom is something for Zoom. I don't think it's necessary. So I've got mine pretty minimal. There's also an end of the meeting experience feedback. This is again for Zoom, so that if Zoom wanted to gather information about areas where they're having problems, they could follow up. There's a co-host, and co-hosts have the same meeting controls as the host. It just allows somebody else to respond to things. Polling is a premium function, and that's what I was using earlier. The toolbar is the black bar at the bottom of my screen that has all of my options for how to share the video and that sort of thing. And I leave that on, as well as the screen share. The screen sharing is the other security feature. You can enable other participants to share, and I leave mine to host only. One of the Zoom bombing characteristics is that somebody gets on and then they start sharing their screen with information that you don't really want to see. So I leave this off, and then I allow people to share if we need to. So there are a couple of options around that. Annotation is the same way, and whiteboard is the same way. So these are tools that people can use that can be really helpful. And if you know that the folks that are in your group are just your folks, they're helpful. But I turn them off just so that I don't have any security issues. This remote control option I use actually quite a bit. This allows me to take control over somebody else's computer, and I use this for troubleshooting. So there are probably a few people on this call who I've taken over your screen and tried to help figure out what was going on. That's this remote control option. Nonverbal feedback are, they're like thumbs up icons that you can turn on or off. Allowing remove participants to rejoin. The Zoom will try to reconnect you automatically if your session drops. If you kick somebody out of your meeting and you have this turned off, they can't get back in. If they get kicked off, there's no way for them to get back in if you have this turned off. Allowing participants to rename themselves. If you look at my little window, my video, it says AAUW California. I could change that. If you allow this, people can change their own names. I suppose that is a slight security risk. Somebody could put in something inappropriate in there, but I haven't had any problems with that. And then you can just hide people's pictures if you want. These are some advanced features. Breakout rooms are on the advanced. Actually, they've moved this to the regular Zoom paid account. It's not just a premium feature anymore. And this allows you to break out into smaller rooms. We're not going to go over that. Remote support is kind of like the other one, taking over somebody else's screen. These are not really basic features. I am going to answer the closed captioning one, even though it's more of an advanced feature. So closed captioning allows somebody to type in the words that you're saying. And that's the current functionality. So you have to have somebody who's assigned to do that, and they physically have to type it. There are third-party products that do live transcription. One of them is called Otter, O-T-T-E-R. And I have tried that one, and it works fairly well. It doesn't work with webinars, which is why we're not using it today. It does work with meetings. The only challenge that I've seen with that is it opens up a second window. And depending on the skill of your users, that can be a challenge for people to find two windows and put them next to each other so that they can read as the session is going on. Zoom is piloting or testing that same functionality within their product. So we're going to, I did install Otter for our meetings. I am going to wait until Zoom provides that feature within the tool. And then along with captions, you can save them. So these other things are more advanced features. Everybody likes to play with the virtual background. So this would allow you to change from what's looking behind me, I have my office, to put a picture or something like that. You can allow people to do that, or you can turn that off. And you can also allow videos for that. Sometimes they have a little bit of a halo effect. They can be a little distracting in and of themselves. And I was on a Zoom call yesterday where somebody continually changed the picture, and it was a small group. There were only 7 of us, and this person continually changed the picture, and it was so distracting. I wanted to say stop. So just think about that. If it becomes a problem, I just turn it off and say sorry, you can't do that. These auto-identify, some of these features are more advanced. I'm not going to go through them. You can look them up if you want. Okay. And you can live stream. I have not live streamed to Facebook or YouTube. I might test out the YouTube one. For Otter, I set up live streaming so that Otter could support, but again, that's more of an advanced feature. So I'm gonna then go to recordings, and then I'm gonna stop and ask Tracy and Randa if there are any messages in the Q&A that I should address before we start scheduling meetings. So on the recording,
yes, I would like you to answer at least a couple of them.
Okay.
If you drop an account, let me get to the right question. If you decide to drop an account, are there any concerns with security after advising Zoom?
If you drop an account, like if you cancel your account?
I guess that's the question.
Okay. I'm not sure that I can answer that. That would be a question for Zoom. I have canceled, because I've made some test accounts and canceled them, and they just go away. So I don't see any, but that would be a question for Zoom.
I think that probably answers the question. What is the encryption one at the start of the meeting?
The encryption one.
I think it might be that now everybody has to have an encryption account starting, I think it was July 1st or something, and it happens automatically.
Yeah, it's not anything I turn on. The meeting password is encrypted in the one link join. Let's see, where else does it say? Required third, I'm not doing the third party encryption. So that's the only piece that I would see is that in the password, it automatically encrypts the password when you include the password in the registration information.
Okay. I think maybe that's, oh, I'm sorry, there, I just saw one. Please go over how to screen share a video from YouTube.
Okay, I'm going to do that when we get to screen sharing.
Okay, that's all for
So
now.
that's coming up. If I don't, remind me. Okay. All right. Any other questions we should do before we go on to scheduling and recording?
No, I think it's okay now.
Okay. All right. So in the recording, these are settings for recordings as well. I would recommend that you practice this because I have changed them a couple of times and got some sort of unexpected results. And so I would, what I do is I set this up and then I start the meeting with just myself. I share my screen, I do a little blah, 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 and then I end the meeting and then I get my video and I see, does it do what I want it to do? So this is set on as default that somebody can record it locally. I don't really do anything with that. I usually use a cloud recording. And so there are different options for how you want the recording to look. So you can do a speaker with a shared screen. So that's what you would see when we do this one. I've got that one turned on. And so you're going to see my shared screen and then a little picture of me in the upper right-hand corner. And you can do these other different options. Some of them don't apply to webinars because we don't have a gallery view, that sort of thing. You can also record an audio file only. So that would allow you, think of a podcast, think of that like a podcast, so you could use just the audio piece of it. And you can also save the chat messages. I haven't found that to be too helpful. They're a little distracting. And then I do keep the thumbnails. I did the timestamp on the last one, and it was huge. It was all the way at the bottom of the screen, and it took up way too much room, and it was ugly. And the same thing with the participant's name. That participant's name can be large, and it is whatever they put in their window. So if I turned this on, it would just say AAUW California in the bottom of the screen. And so I don't think that's necessary. I've turned those off. So you can set it up so that your meetings automatically record, or you can start them manually, which is what I did today. And you can record it to your local computer, or you can record it in the cloud. And you only have a certain amount of storage space in the cloud, so you're going to have to remove them over time. But they do a really nice job of just rendering it so that you can just download it and use it. I first did mine to the local computer, and then I had to do some of that work to make it usable. So I usually do it to the cloud. Then you have a couple of options for how people can view it. So you can put a link to the recordings right in the on your website or wherever. You can send out a link, and then you can require a password to do those. You can have them delete after a certain amount of time. The thing to remember is if you were doing one of these for your branch and you put it on your website and you ran out of space and you put your link there, when you delete it, it goes away. So that's just something to think about. I would put it on YouTube and then share the YouTube. I did put a recording disclaimer on at the beginning of our session, just so that you know that it is being recorded. For a webinar, it's not as much of an issue because I know I'm being recorded and I'm the only one. Myself, Randa, and Tracy are the only ones who are going to be heard. But if you were doing a meeting where you have a lot of people talking, you might want to get their consent or let them know that they're being recorded and that their recording could end up someplace. So you can just turn on the notification, and in your window, there should be a little red button in the top left-hand side that shows that we're recording this. You can you can click these two to ask whether people approve to have themselves recorded. If they say no, they get bounced out of the meeting. So I haven't had anybody complain about it, but it's mostly just been us, me talking. So I don't think anybody cares if I get recorded.
Andy, somebody's asked a second time. I don't know what it means to record locally.
So it's just where the file goes. So whether the file goes in the cloud or it goes on your local computer. And I'll show you right now, right here under recordings. So under recording management, when I'm done with this session, I'm going to get an email that says that my recording is done. And you can see right now that this session is being recorded. These sessions are done. So this is one I played with earlier today. You can see July 10th at 2 o'clock. This was my test one. But here's one from the annual meeting as an example. Okay, so we did the annual meeting. If I click on here, you can see I can download it. I can create a link that I could put on my website, or I can just play it here. Now, somebody was asking, how do you play a YouTube video? I could go to YouTube. I can play this here. There are two settings when you are doing that under your video options that you want to turn on, or your sharing options that you want to enable for sharing videos. That's the only thing that's different. But if I turn this on right now, it would start to play the video. I can download it and then I can delete it. So I hope that answers the question. So these are in the cloud. If it was shared locally or done locally, it would be on my computer. I wouldn't have to download it. It would already be on my computer. Okay, any other questions before we go on to scheduling? Miranda, or?
I'm not sure what this means. Can the size of the shared screen be reversed so that the presenter is the biggest screen?
I'm not sure why you do that. Can you do that? Let me think. I can spotlight the video. Let's try that. I'm going to spotlight the video. So I don't know, am I bigger for you guys now? I can only see my view.
Because we're seeing the screen, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're usually sharing a screen, and usually the screen you're sharing is too small to start with, so I haven't ever needed to redo that. If you weren't sharing your screen and you had a gallery of people up, you can highlight, there are two different views. There's speaker view, which is the person who's talking, and gallery view, which is all of the people. And you can pin a video so that one person's video is always showing, even if other people are talking, or highlighting it. Okay, Randa.
Several people have asked you to slow down a little bit and take a breath.
Okay.
My comment is that they can go back and see it online.
Yes. Yes. So I see a couple of questions in the chat. I will probably, is there a way to add recorded musing to a PowerPoint presentation that's being shared? Yes, so whatever you're sharing is however it appears on your computer. So if you have music in your PowerPoint, it will show. If I were to go to YouTube right now and share a video from YouTube, you're gonna hear music. Oh, you guys want to hear some music? So if I click on here, I probably have a video setting I need to change. So this might not optimize shared for full screen video clip, and share computer sound. And so if I click on here, I have to try, there's something in the way of me clicking the, can't turn it on. I don't know what this little thing is. Maybe it's not started yet. Oh, it's July 10th at 5 o'clock. Oh, it's an upcoming one. But trust me, if you come here and you play a video, it will display to everybody. Okay. Where do you find recordings you have made of your meetings? They're going to be on the cloud, in the cloud under recording management. If they're on your computer, when you're done, it will tell you that it's saving and it will allow you to open the location where your file is. What are the repercussions for people using their employer's accounts? That's a question for your employer. I can't really answer that. You know, kind of depends on your organizational policy. How do you access controls during the meeting? So you can, if you have the, and can you allow remove participants to rejoin? If you've got that setting set where participants can't rejoin, then they can't rejoin. So you have to use that carefully. The controls when you're sharing your screen or when you're in control of the meeting is if you hover at the bottom of your window, and you should see this right now, a black box pops up with your controls in it. And your controls are a little bit different than my controls because I am in webinar, and I will show a couple of screens in a few minutes of where those features are. I'm not gonna, HD video, it's just higher quality video, which takes more bandwidth. All of these features are not in the basic account, you're absolutely right. Okay. Thumbnails are the little pictures, like I have a thumbnail right now, that's in the upper right-hand corner. Okay. If you're going to, you want to enlarge the speaker to show something you're doing or demonstrating, stop sharing. So if I stop sharing right now, you're going to get a big picture. So right now you have 3 things on the screen. You've got Randa's name, Tracy's name, and my name. And I'm in gallery view right now. If I were to go to speaker view, then I'm the only one who's showing. So if you wanted to demonstrate something, I would just stop sharing my screen. Okay. All right, so let me go over to the presentation, and I think we're going to go next to scheduling a meeting. So here's our next stop. So you have your account set up and you have your settings done. You can always go and change your settings. So if you find that something's not working, a lot of them you can change in the meeting itself, and you can go back and change them on your regular settings. So I'm at my account right now, and I'm going to go, there are a couple of different ways to schedule a meeting. One is here, schedule a meeting. And the difference between schedule a meeting and host a meeting is schedule a meeting is in the future, and host a meeting is right now. So I could host a meeting right now with my video on or off, or screen share only. I can't do that right now because I'm already in a meeting. It would say, do you want to cancel the meeting? And then we would have a problem. So I'm going to go to schedule a meeting.
Sandy, you need to start your PowerPoint.
I'm not in the PowerPoint. I'm on the schedule a meeting on Zoom.
Oh, okay, got it.
So, so I just clicked on the schedule a meeting. I'm going to make this a little bigger, so hopefully you can see it. So this, I clicked here, schedule a meeting. There is a plugin for Chrome, so you can play with that if you want, but I'm just going to show you the basics. Here's the topic. So it's called My Meeting. I'm going to say it is Sandy's, whoops.
Sandy, we're seeing the PowerPoint.
You're seeing the PowerPoint?
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it was just me. You weren't sharing the Zoom screen.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. I thought you were trying to get me to share the PowerPoint. Okay. So now can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So for those of you who couldn't imagine what I was talking about because I had the wrong screen showing, I went to meetings on the left-hand side. I mean, that was my list of meetings. But right at the top, there's a choice to schedule a meeting. And there's a choice to host a meeting. So I did schedule a meeting, and it pops up this meeting scheduler. So I'm going to say this is Sandy's meeting. You can put in a description, whatever you want. This is not required, but you can put in a description. And I think I was telling you before that you can have a template. So if you want a template, so I have an AAUW meeting template, I could use that, and it has some of the things that I use over and over again. But I'm just going to go like this. You pick the date off of a calendar. It's going to default to the next half hour. So today is 7:10. It must be between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. So it's going to default to 5 o'clock, but I can change that. So I'm going to make this for the end of the month, and I'm going to make it for 5 a.m. Okay. And I'm going to get my little windows out of the way. You can set your duration here. So if you have a free account, you're not going to get a duration. With a paid account, you can set a duration of up to 24 hours. So I'm just going to say this is a 1-hour meeting. You could pick your time zone. It defaults to where you are. You can set it up as a recurring meeting. If you do that, it's much like other calendars. You can choose how frequently, daily, weekly, monthly, repeats how often. So I could say every month, I want to do it on the 31st of the month, or I want to do it the first Sunday of the month. So you have lots of scheduling options here. And then it will create a series of meetings that all look like the very first meeting. You can do that, and then you can go and change individual meetings if you have a meeting that doesn't quite fit that schedule. I'm going to turn that off. Registration is a paid feature. The reason to use registration on a paid account is it allows you to understand how many people are coming to your event, and it allows you to know who's coming, and it allows you to ask questions or to follow up with those people individually. So if you don't use this and you have sent this out to your whole branch, you might not know who's coming. You might not know whether you're going to have 5 people or 25 people. So the registration is really helpful for that, but it is a paid feature. I'm going to set my meeting ID to generate automatically. I could use my personal meeting ID. This is the same all the time. And I can require a password, and you can leave it like this. I change ours to AAUWCA so that everybody knows that that's what it is. But that's a secret. Don't tell everybody, or everybody will be joining our meetings. Here's the video piece. It defaults to what was in your settings. So if you remember in my settings, I had host on, participant off. That just puts everybody like Randa and Tracy are today, where you just see their name. I could turn it on, and then automatically they'll be turned on. You can always change that in the meeting, but I have mine set up so the participant video is off. Audio, I just use both. I don't know why you would do one over the other. And then you have a couple of other options here. So remember we talked about the waiting room and the host option. So you can have people join before you, or you can put them in a waiting room, or you can just have them join when you start the meeting. So those are kind of 3 different ways: before you join, after you join, or just when you join. And you can mute people automatically when they join, or you can do that when you get in the room. And then record meeting automatically. And I did see a question in the in here about whether you can do it both places, and you can't. Your choice is in the cloud or locally. All right, and you can set up alternative hosts if you already know who that's going to be. I'm just going to say save, and voila. My calendar or my meeting is scheduled. And if I go to my meeting, so remember this was July 31st, it's going to appear in my list of meetings. So let's go to July 31st. There's my meeting. Okay. Now let's say that I have to change something about it. if I just click on here, it opens that same window. And so I can make any changes that I want to make on this meeting. So I could change the topic, and the edit piece is down at the bottom, edit this meeting. And if I really, really liked it, I could save it as a template, and it'll save it as a template with that same name. So if I wanted to change any of these features, I could do it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, now you have your meeting created, but nobody knows about it, right? You just created it, but you haven't shared it with anybody. There are two basic ways to do that. One is you have this invite link here. You can copy that link. So I'm right-clicking on this and say, copy link address, and I could just go to my email and I could embed that. The other way I could do it is I could do copy invitation, and it takes this meeting information and I say copy meeting information, and it is copied to the clipboard. So if I were to go to my mail and I create a new message, okay, so don't read all my mail, you guys. Okay, so I'm going to send this to myself. And I'm going to say this is my meeting invite. And all I'm doing here is pasting Control V or paste. And it pastes that whole invite in here. One thing it doesn't do, which I wish it would do, is it doesn't put it as a hyperlink unless you hit enter there. So I usually do that so that it comes over as a hyperlink. And you could do a distribution list. You know, if you've got a group set up, you can do that. So that's one way of getting your invite out. There is no way within Zoom to send out an invitation. You have to do it through your email system. Or the other way you can do it is you can do it through a calendar entry. So they give you three options. You can put it in your Google Calendar, you can do an Outlook calendar, or you can do a Yahoo calendar. So I'm just going to play with the Google Calendar so you can see it. So if I did a Google Calendar, it's going to open up my Google Calendar. And I have multiple accounts, and so it's probably a little bit different than what you have. But some of you have multiple Gmail accounts or email accounts. You want to pick the one that you want that the calendar is in. So I'm going to pick Site Admin as our AAUW California calendar. So I'm going to pick that, and it's going to ask me the first time of the day or the first time I open my environment, it's going to ask me if I want to allow that. You want to say yes. And so it brings up the whole meeting. Now, I am logged in as me. It defaults to me. Many of you have had this problem where you are invited to something and you've got two Gmail accounts and it defaults to your personal one, not your work one, or vice versa. It's always good to look up here to see who you are, because I don't really own this. It's just, I don't own this calendar event. It's AAUW, so I'm going to go to my AAUW account. And now I can add guests. So you could put your distribution list in here. So I could send it to myself as an invite here. I could change this if I wanted to. I can say save it. I can say send it. It's telling me because I have a corporate account that it's sending to somebody outside of AAUW California. And it's going to put it on the calendar. So if I go down to the 31st, it should be there. It's behind the window for me. July, oh, wrong month. July 31st. So it should be, this is our calendar. It's somewhere here. I can't really see it because I have a bunch of little windows open, but it should be down here on the calendar. Oops. So that's the second way. So you can add it to a calendar and then invite people to the meeting. You can copy the invitation and just do it through your email. Those are two ways to get your invitation across. Oh, the third way is you could copy this URL and put that in your email. So I'm going to pause, Randa and Tracy, and see, are there questions related to this in the chat or in the Q&A?
Yes. What about a calendar on the Mac?
They give you 3 different integration options. They don't give you a Mac one. So I don't know. They're Android, kind of Android based.
Okay. And if a branch has an account, does the alternate host get to control the meeting by themselves?
An alternate host can control the meeting, yes.
Okay.
Where did I hit enter to make the hyperlink? So when I copied the invitation over, I'm copying the invitation and I say copy meeting information and it says copy to clipboard. When I created my email, let me erase this. When I created my email, I pasted that information here and it all comes over. It's just that this, where it says join, it doesn't look like a hyperlink. It's not underlined. I just put my cursor at the end of that line and hit enter and it turns it into a hyperlink. Okay.
Is there a limit to the size of the gallery, the number of participants?
So yes, it depends on your computer. Typically, a regular desktop or laptop has 25 per window. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can show you that. So right now, you have the option in your upper right-hand corner of your screen to go speaker view or gallery view. And you have the option to go full screen, which is like 4 little brackets that look like that. If you go to speaker view, then you get you get me. If you go to gallery view, then you get the 3 of us. And I don't know what you can see because I'm not sharing my screen. You have 25 as the limit per page. If you get to 25, you'll have a little arrow to the right or to the left so that you can scroll through them. If you're on a phone, it's much smaller. And I can't remember the number, but a phone, you know, you can't fit 25 people on the screen. You wouldn't be able to see them. Okay. Let's see, any other questions? Show your screen how to ensure sound on PowerPoint is playing. I don't have a PowerPoint with sound in it, so I can't really do that for you. I can share, let's see if we can find a YouTube video that's appropriate. Let's see, let's do this. You'll have to tell me, Randa and Tracy, if you get sound on this. Tracy, did you hear sound on that?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Okay. So I didn't do anything except share the screen. I did, there is an option if you go under the little bar at the bottom, there's a more, and I said share computer sound. That's one thing that I did do, is they share computer sound. Somebody wants to see the AAUW meeting template. It just, it doesn't really have anything in it that's worth sharing. Let's see, where's the screen sharing link? At the bottom of your screen, and maybe I'll go back to the PowerPoint and share, let's see. So you can see the PowerPoint now, Randa or Tracy?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, so let me see if I have a, so here's the thing on your screen, and I will try to make this bigger. And we'll try to make this bigger. Let's see. I'll make it bigger like this. So down at the bottom of your screen, when you're in a meeting, whether you're hosting or whether you're a participant, on the left-hand side, you have a microphone. And that microphone has a little caret next to it. And if the person is turned on, there's no line through the mute button. If the person is muted, there'll be a line through the microphone. If you go to the video, there's a little caret next to that as well, and that brings up different options. If you turn your video off, there'll be a line through it. The next one, I don't know, can you guys even see that? It's so small. The next one over is invite. That allows you to invite more people to the meeting, and it will show you on the top of the little window the meeting ID, and at the bottom of the window the password if there is one. Next to that is manage participants. If you open that window up, so okay, so the invite here, this window, there's the meeting ID is right here and the password is here. If you open up your participant window, that's number 4, you get this participant window over here, and it shows all of the people who have joined your meeting. There'll be a list of them here. And if you have people who are raising their hand, they will appear at the top of the screen. And then if you open your chat, that will appear down here, and you can see all of the, people's chats, and people can choose who they want to send their message to depending on what you have set up. Here are your recording buttons, so turning your recording on and off. And this is a support one that doesn't really matter unless you're going to be turning support on. And I have reaction buttons turned on, and I frankly can't remember if that's a paid or a free version. But those are typically a thumbs up, thumbs down, and they will appear in your window. On the participant window, there are a bunch of little things here. One says yes, one says no, go slower, go faster. Those will appear next to somebody's name if they've clicked on them. And then to share your screen, right down here is a share button. And that'll give you the option to either share an individual window or to share your all of your screen.
Sandy, while you're there,
Yes.
we have a question that says, where is the share computer sound? Please show on your screen, and how do you turn control over to another person?
Okay, so to turn control over to another person, you see the person in the participant list, and if you click on the more button, one of the options is to share or to make somebody else a co-host or make them the host. Okay, and then what was the other question? Oh, share computer sound.
Correct.
So when you do the share, I wish I could show you this, but when you do the share, at the bottom of the screen, there are 2 options, share computer sound and share your video full size. They're in the bottom of that window on the left-hand side. You just click those. Once you're in the meeting, I have a little more button down here once I've started, and it's also in the more button down here, which doesn't show on the screen, but that's where it is. Okay. Any other questions, or should I go on? I'm gonna go on. Okay. All right. So up until now, we created an account, we created a meeting, and we invited people to the meeting. But now what? Now what happens? So you're gonna host your meeting. And let's see if I can get to the right screen here, and then we'll go back and look at, oh, here's some more. These are in your packet. So, so do you see the start and stop video here? You can also in their participant list mute people, mute all, unmute all. Let's see, I think I got everything that's on here already. All right. Let's go to, oops, I think I went too far. All right, hosting a meeting. All right, so now your meeting's scheduled, now what? So just some basic information about having a meeting. Online meeting is no different than a meeting that you have in person. You need to be prepared, have an agenda. it's helpful if you distribute the materials prior to the meeting. So I sent that out prior to this meeting. It's posted on the website. I put that in the chat. You're still going to have problems. You're still going to have some people who have a problem with that. And you just have to follow up with them after. I would say really recommend that you just start basic and just do an easy meeting and practice with somebody. You know, have a friend on it and just play around with the two of you until you understand the controls. And that's the best way to learn. And I would do that before you got a bunch of people on your call. Sometimes people have bandwidth problems. I turn off all of my other programs because I have like a string running. I'm the last person in my line. I live up in the country. I'm the last person that has internet access. So you know I get the smallest amount of bandwidth. So I turn everything off in my house before I start a call. I also start early. And if you have your waiting room enabled, you could let in a couple of people that you want to practice with before you let everybody else in. It's also helpful if you orient people to what the screen looks like and how are you going to do questions. Are you going to use the chat or not? Do you want people to raise their hand or not? Do you want them to just unmute on their own? And those are really personal decisions based on the size of your meeting and the type of group that you're in. So I'm in a book group and we are pretty open. Everybody turns their microphone on unless there's a lot of noise, and then we turn it off and turn it on when we're starting to talk. The other thing to know is know when to give up. So if you have somebody who's having a really hard time connecting with the meeting, they are having problems with their microphone or their video or whatever, sometimes you just have to say, I'll follow up with you later. If you have a whole room full of people, you don't want to spend your entire session trying to help one person. It's okay to move on and then follow up with that person later. And then practice. It just really helps if you practice. So to start your meeting, I'm going to go back over. I'm going to do a couple of slides here and then I'll go back and show you. So you can start or join your meeting. If you're the host, you can start the meeting. If you're not the host, you can join the meeting. You can share your screen and then you can let people in. I tend to, on a meeting, open the chat window and ask people to enter their name and their branch so that I know who's there. And then I open the participant window so that I can mute people and see who's on and assign a co-host or whatever. So we already went over these screens. So host controls. So sometimes you need people to share information with you. So they can do it through the chat. So at the bottom of the screen is the chat and it opens up that chat window. We have the chat window turned off here because we're using the Q&A, which is a feature of a webinar. You can control who chats. I showed you that in the settings. So you can let people chat with everybody. You can let people chat just with the panelists, or you can just turn it off. Those nonverbal gestures are in the participant window. So this participant window up here, the participants, they're underneath here. I think you can see them better on here. So you can monitor what people are saying. Yes, no, go faster, go slower. You can use those to have a sense of what's going on with your audience. And then the reactions are also on the bottom toolbar. And those are really thumbs up, thumbs down. They're not really that helpful. Some people have asked about taking, you know, I want to raise hands and you've got 5 or 6 people on your call. Just raise your hand, just physically raise your hand. It's easier than doing the raise hand thing. If you're hosting a large meeting and you've got 25 or 30 people on the call and you use the raise hand, you'll need to look at your participant window to see who has their hand raised, because they could be on a 2nd or 3rd gallery screen and you won't be able to see them. So you need to do that from your participant window. All right, so I think we'll probably, all right, let me just do a couple more So screen sharing, we talked about host only option. So that's just you. I do that one. You can share your entire screen or just a document or a window. And I have another slide on that. If you're sharing a video, we've talked about this, you need to turn the sound on, and those are at the bottom of this share screen window. And remember that participants can see what's in your window. So I don't usually share my email with people. I did go to that screen so that I could show you how to do that, but just remember that, you know, the 79 or 80 people that are on this call could read my email as I went to that window. So when you do the share, so at the bottom of your screen, you would have a green button that says share. You get a window that looks like this. It depends on how many windows you have open, but you can share your whole screen, that's everything. Or you can share an individual application, like this was just the PowerPoint. And I had that problem earlier where I shared just the PowerPoint and then I went to my internet and you couldn't see it. So I should have shared my screen at that point in time. So I could just share a specific document if I wanted to. And then down here is where you indicate whether you want to share computer sound and optimize the screen for sharing a video clip. You want to turn those two on. If you don't turn the share computer sound on, the only sound that gets shared is what is coming through your microphone when you're playing your YouTube video or your PowerPoint presentation. So if you want it to come from the computer, which is better, you would want to click that. Okay. I had some questions about managing a large group. So we've talked about this, but I just want to go through them again. So can you see everybody in a large group? No, you can't. If you've got 30 people on the call, you're not going to be able to see everybody. You're only going to see 25, and you're going to have a little caret on the side to go to the next window. Your participant window shows you the whole list of people, and the people who've raised their hands are going to be at the top of the list, so you can use that to see who's raised their hand and who you should call on. And you could also use the chat to see who has questions. There are several different view options on your screen. One is speaker view, and that's who's talking, and gallery view, that's everybody. And you can also hide non-video participants, so the people who don't have a video showing or their picture showing, you can hide them. The challenge is you can't control this for your participants. I think that's one of the most difficult things, is that your participants have the ability to decide how they want to view, and sometimes it's difficult to know what they've done when they just say, I can't find, you know, I can't find the window or whatever. It's sometimes that is a difficult thing to do, and that just takes practice to be able to ask questions. You might also want to think about how to keep order in your room. So I tend to mute all participants and unmute them when they need to contribute. I use the chat extensively. So have people identify themselves, use that chat to ask questions. Today I have 2 moderators working with me. So Tracy and Randa are in the background answering questions and monitoring. We have a chat going with us. And so they're managing that so that I don't have to look at that while I'm trying to present. So if you're hosting a meeting or you have a speaker, do your speaker a favor and let them focus on their presentation and assign somebody else to participate. So just as a note, I see that Pamela raised her hand. So as a host, I get to see that information, and several people are raising their hands. So Randa and Tracy will take a look at that. And for large meetings or small meetings, save your bandwidth and turn your video off. If you have a large group, I tell people to turn their video off because it's really distracting when you are having a conversation and somebody's getting up and feeding their dog or whatever, and you see that in the little video. If I just suggest that people turn their video off unless they really need to share their face. Okay. All right. So let me go over to, we've got about 15 minutes left. Let me go over to Zoom. Okay. So now, when you want to start a meeting, you can go into your meeting tab here. You might get a reminder depending on how you have it set up, but I'm going to go to my meetings tab here. And you just hit start. I would do that, but if I do that, it's going to ask me if I want to leave this meeting, and I don't really want to leave this meeting. So that's as easy as it is. It'll pop up a little window, and it'll ask you if you want to run Zoom, and you can do that. You can also do it from the Zoom window. So if you have downloaded the application, so I'm using this from the internet, right? You can also do it from a downloaded Zoom app. And I can't show you that because I'm in a meeting right now, but at the bottom of your screen, sometimes I put it on my toolbar, there's a little Zoom app, and it will allow you to join a meeting by just putting in a number, or your list is there. I just tend to do this because I do a lot of work on this. Okay, so let's talk about problems. So you're all prepared. Everything's, you're all set up and people are starting to join, and then you have problems. And so I'm going to go over some of the most common problems that I've seen. The first one is audio problems. So people say, I can't hear you, you can't hear me. There's an echo when somebody talks, it breaks up, that sort of thing. First of all, it's hard to remember that if they can't hear you, then talking to them doesn't really help. So I tend to use the chat window to try to communicate with them. And sometimes that doesn't even work. So I'll share my screen and open up a Microsoft Office, a Word window, and I'll type a message on a document, because I'm sharing my screen, and I'll say, Sandy, I can't really hear you, or you can't hear me, whatever. So be creative in how you communicate, but ultimately give yourself a deadline for solving problems and then move on. So if you can't solve it in the first 5 minutes, then just know you're going to have to go back and work with that individual. Some of the common things that are wrong is people don't have their microphone turned on. It does happen. And you can tell them to go to that screen on the bottom left where the microphone was, and to look there. And there is a test my microphone option down there. They could use a headphone. Computer microphones sometimes don't pick up the audio very well, especially if you have a laptop. If you've added on a camera microphone combo, that works pretty well. The other thing you can do is to mute everybody who's everybody, and only let the people who are talking use their microphone, and you'll get rid of a lot of background noise. When all else fails, and I've had this on a session where we did practice and practice and practice with a speaker, and we just couldn't hear the speaker. You can ask them to use it by phone. So down in that video or audio section, when you do the little caret and it brings up the menu, one of those is to dial in by phone. If they click on that, it will give them the telephone number and dial-in information. They can stay on the video and then use their phone for the audio. The other common problem is video problems. I can't see you, you can't see me, I can't see what you're displaying. Sometimes it's really simple, like you don't have your camera turned on, or you have a screen over your camera. So on my laptop, I have this little guide that goes across so that people can't turn the camera on and see me unintended. Sometimes I forget to move that, so it's not really a problem with the computer, it's just a physical issue. So it might be your anti-glare screen, it could be something that's over your camera. And if they really can't follow you, then hopefully you've sent out materials and they can use the materials to try to follow along. Now I realize today I've bounced around a little bit, so it'd be a little bit difficult for you to follow along on the materials. So that's just one of the pros and cons of doing a demo. The other problem is you might not have enough bandwidth in your house, and you might not have time to talk to your internet provider about getting more bandwidth. So I have this problem and I don't have an option. There is no larger bandwidth in my area. So before I host a meeting like this, I look at all the things that are attached to the internet in my house, and there are a lot of them. My TV is connected, my printer is connected, I've got 3 computers, I have my cell phone, all of that kind of stuff, all takes bandwidth. So if you turn those things off, you'll have more for your presentation. If you're sharing your screen and you have a PowerPoint presentation, for instance, or a Google Doc that you're sharing, I would download that and share that from your local computer. Because if you are trying to share it from the internet, you're actually having to go up to the internet and grab that information and then share it. So it takes more bandwidth. And the other tip that I have is reboot your router or your modem prior to your session and your computer. So just make sure that everything's cleaned out. Okay, before we go on, these are kind of, the next pieces are not really basic stuff. I included them, we've gone over most of them, but I wanna stop and answer questions because we only have about 7 minutes left. So Randa and Tracy, do you have any questions that I should address?
I think only a couple right now.
Okay.
One is, have you experienced bandwidth problems with the artificial backgrounds?
That would be a local computer issue. So if you don't have much bandwidth on your computer, then you might not want to turn that on. It does take up some bandwidth. Mostly it can be distracting because sometimes you get a halo around the person's head and they move and they get in and out of focus. But those are the major challenges with that.
Okay, and there is another question regarding the screen sizes versus the PowerPoint versus the meeting host screen.
Okay.
And she said it would have been less boring to have the presenter's face larger and PowerPoint slides smaller.
Oh,
I don't think that's an option. Is that true?
I haven't found that to be an option. I'll play around with it after this session, but I haven't seen that you have any choice over the size of your windows.
Yeah, okay. I think that's it for now. Just some difficulties downloading the materials.
The materials. Okay, so I'm gonna, since I'm sharing, let me show you where they are if you haven't found them already. So if you go to our website.
And Sandy, if you can also show where the webinar recording will be, that would be helpful too.
Okay, well that's predicting a little bit. So can you all see our website here? Tracy and Randa?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
All right. So under California Business, and this is just for today, for this set of materials, if you go under Tech Tools, there's an article for each of our sessions that we've had. So today is the basic Zoom, and if you click on Read More here, click here to download the presentation, and if I do that, it opens up a window with the PDF in it. And if you hover near the top, you can download it or print it. And now I'm using the left arrow to go back. And there is a checklist, a Zoom meeting checklist that we put together, some helpful tips about things to do before and after the meeting. So those, and this presentation will be loaded here after we're done. So if I were to go back to advanced Zoom, this was a session that we had before. So again, download the presentation and the meeting checklist. I will go back to the home page and show you an example of GovTrack, which was done a couple of weeks ago. And it's still on the home page. is got presentation, the toolkit, and then watch the webinar. So if you clicked on this, it's going to take you to our YouTube channel.
Just said it's all mine,
And
just
here's
before you
the
muted. So here we go. All right, good afternoon and welcome to everybody.
Okay.
I'm
So it will be posted on the page with the basic Zoom under Tech Tools.
Okay, are there any differences between Apple computers and non-Apple? Because this person is having trouble when they click the links. Have you experienced that?
I have to confess that I am not an Apple person. So as Susan, I guess we could send you the presentation and see if you can open it that way. So Tracy, if you can just make a note of who that is,
Okay.
then I can send her the link to it, or send actually the presentation.
Will do.
All right, so I have another poll for you guys. Because it looks like we're just out of time. So I just am curious how did we do today? So just give me some feedback about whether you got what you were hoping to get out of this session or not, so that we know and can adjust our future sessions. And we've got 68% of people. All right, we're getting close there. So Nancy says she needs the PDF as well. And Janice, I think that's your issue around the document. It goes to CR download. It gets that name until it's completely downloaded, the document. That's kind of you get that message while it's in process. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing, and Tracy and, oh, Randa had to leave. Tracy, why don't you turn your video on so people can see your face? And
Uh-oh, okay.
oh, well, you don't have to if you don't want.
No, it's okay, I'm good.
All right, so
Hi,
thank you,
everyone.
Tracy, and thank you to everybody who joined. And I don't know if we had any questions that we weren't able to get to. If we did, we will try to follow up with them after this session. And if you guys know that you can always send me an email if you need some help. So sandy.gabe@hotmail.com. All right, well, thanks everybody. Have a good evening.